Hello, in this video we're going to talk about the idea of an online title search. In previous videos we've talked about the fact that online title searches do not exist. In this video we're going to answer the question, why not? This is Dave at titlesearch.com. There's a few reasons why an online title search does not exist. The main one is that each record of an event which goes into the history of a property is filed as an individual piece of paper in a book, in the records room, in the courthouse. Each one of those pieces of paper goes into the research of a title search. Now, those pieces of paper are required because a property transfer needs to be in writing. It needs to have signatures. So it's not something that can be done using data or a posting in some database. Now, why can't you take those pieces of paper and scan those in, or take the information and put it into a data form? Well, here's the big reason. First of all, how do you identify the property to be searched? Well, if you were just going to use the street address, that might be a good way. You could just put in 12 Main Street, and every piece of paper that referenced 12 Main Street might go into a database. The problem is you can't identify a property by a street address. The street address is simply used by the post office and the mailman to deliver mail. It's not sufficient enough to determine one property from another. For example, in some areas there might be a property that's 12 Main Street that might encompass more than one legal parcel. There might be a building on one end and maybe a parking lot on the other end. In some areas, a property might be a duplex and it might be 12-14 Main Street, two rental units. And if that's the case, well, which one do you use? Some pieces of paper might show 12 Main Street, some might show 14, some might say 12-14, so that might not be legally sufficient. So in almost every county in the United States, there's a process to identify a specific unique piece of real estate that distinguishes it from every other property, called a legal description. Well, legal description is a very long, written out format that describes that property. Here's one example of a legal description on a document. You can notice it's 2 or 3 paragraphs worth of text. And in most cases, it actually runs around the boundaries of that property. It starts at a certain point and then goes 200 feet one direction and then turns 50 degrees to the west and goes so many feet this way. It's a very long description of where that property starts and stops. Because it's such a long description, it's not something that can be readily put into a database where you can index every piece of paper that has that description. Even if you could, any slight variation in that legal description, for example, an extra space, a period versus comma, an abbreviation of the word street, might result in those documents not being connected to each other. So legal description is the biggest reason why property title records cannot be stored electronically. The second big reason why an online title search does not exist is because there's already hundreds of years, 100, 150, sometimes 200 years worth of already filed paper documents, and all those documents go into a current title search. If you're doing a title search on 12 Main Street, 12 Main Street may have been part of a larger parcel, maybe a big farm back in the 1800s, and all those records have to be checked to really identify the current status of that property. And those records, of course, are not stored electronically. Some of them are handwritten records that are filed in books, so that's not going to work electronically. Electronic records, or even scanning of documents, only go back to about the 1980s, sometimes 1990s. So any records before that really wouldn't go into the title history. Land in the United States is not registered land, meaning that each parcel is not registered with a certain serial number, because land can be subdivided and joined together, which means those serial numbers would change. When it comes to online records, also remember that a scanned picture of a page, for example, if this page was scanned in and stored as such as a PDF file, that does not make it an electronic record. It just means it's a photo. It's basically a scanned in picture of that document. The words on that page are normally not withdrawn or extracted into a database. So a scanned picture might make it technically electronic and viewable on a screen. It doesn't make it an electronic or online record. It's just a scanned image of that page. Online or electronic records would be great. It would make it easier for companies like us to do title searches. If everything was electronic, we could just type in an address and boom, it pops up on the screen. But The fact that there are hundreds of years of paper documents stored in books, maybe on microfilm, these long legal descriptions, makes a title search something that has to be done manually by hand in order to be correct. It's usually a 7 to 9 man-hour process of research, and that includes all of the other records that could go into a title. For example, there are records outside of the land records which could affect a title. If a property owner is sued in civil court, even small claims court, and they lose a lawsuit and have a judgment against them, that judgment might automatically attach to their property by state law, even though it's not recorded as a lien like this in the land records. It might be something that attaches from a third-party record. There are hundreds of years of this paper documents, and all these documents are indexed by name. Converting that to an online search by address is beyond the scope of what most counties can do. There's also a budget constraint. There are 3,611 counties across the country, recording venues. Each one of them would have to convert. Some counties just flat out can't afford it. So in the meantime, for the foreseeable future, every title search is a manual process, has to be done by hand, and that makes an electronic or online title search not available. If it was, that'd be great for us. We could save thousands of hours every week in searching if we could do this electronically, and it would be great for clients as well. There's nothing in the near future that shows that that will change, and in the meantime, in order to get a correct, accurate, and certified title search, has to be done manually. If that's what you need, make sure that whoever is doing your title search does it correctly. They're not using electronic records or online records, which may be incomplete or which may be inaccurate. If you have additional questions about title searches or online records, certainly give us a call. You can reach us through our website. There's a link right at the bottom, titlesearch.com, and one of our client experts will be glad to answer that question for you.